I am going to introduce the open house this evening. My name is Susan McLaughlin. I am the Planning and Development Director here at the City of Edmonds. We have a strong team of folks that are working on this project, and I'd like to introduce them. Brad Shipley.
Hey, Susan, thanks. We have to give Sandy a moment for the interpretation.
Excellent.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you for the reminder. Okay, we have Brad Shipley, a senior planner at the City of Edmonds. And I don't see Todd Tatum here this evening, but he is our Economic Development and Community Services Director.
My name is Ian Crozier. I'm an associate planner with Makers.
And Jennifer, are you with us?
Yes. I'm Jennifer Cannon. I'm a senior project manager at Echo Northwest and happy to be here. Hopefully I'm talking slow enough.
Thank you.
Susan, Todd is here. He is here as an attendee. Would you like him to speak tonight?
Yeah, promote him as a panelist. That would be fantastic.
Okay.
Okay, for those of you who have joined us and need interpretation or would prefer interpretation, I want to invite Ian to go over the details here.
Yes, so as you've probably noticed, we have Spanish and Korean language interpreters here tonight. If you are an English speaker, we would still like you to use the interpretation function. So go down to your Zoom interface. It should look like what the picture on the slide and select interpretation and switch it to your language preference. If you do that, you will be able to hear a question that is asked in another language and then translated back into English. So that's why it's important, even if you speak English, to do this, to turn on the setting. This is the interface if you're joining from a mobile device, very similar. And so we're just, very pleased to be joined with our interpreters here today. So we have 12 attendees.
Okay. All right. Should we continue on? Okay. So tonight's meeting objectives, we want to share information about the community renewal plan that we've been working on along the Highway 99 corridor to raise awareness about the project. We also want to confirm findings of the economic and urban design analysis that we've done on the project so far. And we want to hear from you. So there'll be an opportunity for a question and answer and to hear some potential concerns or issues that people might have. So the agenda is there for you to review, and I think we should dive right in. This is a webinar format, and we decided to do a virtual open house, largely to offer the most flexibility for folks along this corridor. We have had an open house in the past for this body of work, and we have pulled that community feedback into consideration as we've worked through some of the analysis. Anyway, we wanted to make sure that you take advantage of the question and answer window to make sure that we are having an interactive dialogue to the best of our ability. And we will open up question and answer at the end of the meeting. Let me know, Ian, if I'm going too fast.
All right, it looks good.
Okay, so what we're here talking about this evening is community renewal. This may be a term folks are familiar with, but it has a specific definition in state law. So RCW 35.81 allows cities to designate community renewal areas. This allows us to employ special strategies or interventions to stop problematic trends as it's described. So community renewal can involve and does involve a number of things, certainly studying the area, which we've been at for a little while now, talking with stakeholders, which will inform you this evening of what we have learned, identifying longstanding problems or blight, and blight is in quotes because, again, that is a specific definition in the RCW that we need to take into consideration to see if it qualifies as a community renewal area. And then the community renewal plan would also involve developing a strategy or a list of recommendations to address these issues and or problems. Next slide. Oh, I'll wait.
Go fast. Lots of opportunities to breathe tonight as we give pause for our interpreters. Okay.
So community renewal, it really allows cities to play a more active role. Oftentimes, cities obviously are regulators, and we may put forward development standards and design review standards that relate to permitting. But really, and that's typically how we influence private development. But in community renewal, we can actually put a more active role to remove barriers or to be active in the acquisition, transfer, and sale of properties. And this is to meet the community's needs or to provide that support for local business and to catalyze investment. It also means that we can provide assistance in a variety of ways to those that may be affected by a renewal project. And this really lends itself to active conversations right now around displacement and whether that be business retention or in terms of to mitigate some housing displacement. It also provides incentives for job creations and retention. So it's basically saying we want to keep those small businesses that are doing well. We want to keep them doing well. We want to keep them on the corridor, and those areas that are vacant or that are experiencing quote unquote, as it's described, blight, that we want to help turn some properties over for more positive uses. Okay, so
Oh, sorry.
yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Did we skip a slide?
No, I was adjusting the Zoom interface and I accidentally changed the slide.
Got it. Right. Are we good to continue?
This is good. Yes.
Good to continue. Okay. So we've been working at the Highway 99 around the Highway 99 area for quite some time. And so a lot of people may have the question of why is this planning effort any different than previous planning efforts? And the answer is that it is slightly different, but it builds on some of the previous corridor planning work that we've done, such as the Highway 99 sub-area plan, which was an active conversation this week at Council. As well as the Highway 99 revitalization infrastructure project that's actively in construction at the moment. And so some positive things are happening along the corridor. However, we're still seeing some areas of the corridor face those persistent challenges of whether it be vacant buildings, but certainly some of the more structural issues like unsafe intersections or long blocks without safe crossings, as well as significant levels of crime are still pressing on the corridor. Therefore, as we talked about at the council meeting on Tuesday, as more homes continue to be built in this area, we're really looking at strategies beyond just the plans that we have in place to accelerate these desired changes. Okay. So getting at the question that many of us have, what is blight? How is it defined? And again, to designate a community renewal area, we do have to designate blight in some form or fashion that is consistent with RCW 3581005. Now, those blight conditions relate to two potential buckets, whether it's health and safety blight or economic blight. And you can see how they're differentiated here on your screen. But some examples of health and safety blight would be the physical deterioration, and that's particularly in relation to buildings on the corridor, with whether there's overcrowding, unsanitary or unsafe conditions. And you can see, I'm not going to go over each one of these, but you can see them here. You know, in some of the from the economic blight would be, you know, whether it's tax delinquencies, so hinting at businesses that are in default or difficult to keep their business up and running. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I will say that based on that last slide, is we're finding that the structural issues of the corridor, the health and safety, are more compelling at this stage in relation to blight than the economic side of things. Okay. So I think we've talked about a little bit of the goals of the project, but really it's to document the issues, particularly looking at those viable strategies to address any issues, and really how the city can play a stronger role in seeing change and turnover in a positive way, in alignment with what the community wants and has recently told us. So this will include the plan itself, will include the summary of engagement, the summary of findings, some of which we're going over tonight, and then proposed actions. All right, so project timeline. So we're here, well, we're not at open house. Well, gosh, Ian, do you want to go over this timeline? I think that's
sure. Yeah, we're right there in the middle. Open house number 1, sharing the background and findings of the project. We're perhaps that summer rectangle is a bit ambitious, but we did have rather a long summer this year, so we're not so far off. Up next in the fall, we will be developing draft recommendations for the plan and the plan draft itself, and are planning to have another open house at that time, and then we'll move towards Planning Commission and Council.
Thank you, Ian. The reason why this took me back is because we did start this body of work in, gosh, it was probably 2021 during the pandemic, and so there was some work done. We did have a change in consultant, the consultant team, and so we restarted this project. So some of you who have been along for the ride, I just wanted to let you know that it has been a bit of a stop and start, but this is what you're seeing is how we're going to get to the final. Across the line.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you, Susan.
Yeah.
One example case study we wanted to share of a community renewal plan that has occurred in a similar situation was in Tukwila. Highway 99 also runs through Tukwila. It's called International Boulevard there, and has many of the same issues that Edmonds faces on Highway 99, including older buildings, that weren't necessarily in good condition, a disproportionately high rate of crime, unsafe crossings of the road, awkwardly shaped properties and diagonal intersections, and properties that were vacant. In 2000, the city adopted a community renewal plan that was building on a prior sub-area plan that helped lead to the redevelopment now called Tequila Village. Tequila Village includes a library branch, a community center, a public plaza, a food hall, an international food hall. It's very cool. Retail spaces, and more than 400 apartments. And I think that figure might even be out of date. I think there may be new buildings recently opened that are mostly senior housing. So that's an example there of a community renewal project that had a successful outcome in a similar situation. It's a relatively, it's a law that is not used very often, but it is used in Washington with success. Tequila, Shoreline, Olympia are some other cities that have used community renewal. So we have some polling questions and some trivia questions as part of tonight's open house. These you can access with a smartphone or with a computer web browser, or even with an old-fashioned cell phone using text messaging. So the easiest way, if you have a smartphone handy, is to point your camera at the QR code that's on your screen, and hopefully it'll automatically read the QR code, and you can click on that, and then you can participate in the poll. You can also type in the URL into a web browser on your phone, or text Maker's Arch 229 to the number 22333. These questions will automatically advance as the slideshow goes forward, so don't worry about trying to keep track of it on your phone. First question is, how are you accessing the poll? If you're doing this with text message, you can just send in A, or I guess in this case it would be D, and that will do the correct answer, or it'll do the fourth option down if you do D. Well, great. Looks like it's working. We wanted to ask one more starting question, just learn a little bit more about who's here tonight. So just to see the zip codes of where you live. Okay, 898502 is the most popular. Excellent. Oh, and one last question about your relationship to HWY99 in Edmonds. Wow, you guys are very, very fast. This is great. It's fun to see the numbers come in.
Hey, Ian.
Yes.
I have a question. They're saying that it is not working for them, that it's requesting a username. Can you speak to that?
I think they might just be able to type in their name or anything. It's not an account or anything like that.
Okay.
But and apologies if this isn't working. These poll results. They help us learn about the audience, but they're just one piece of information. So great. Many who live in the area, and who shop. A few who work, and a good number who travel through. Excellent. We wanted to provide a little bit more background about this area. It is located in southeast Edmonds, along Highway 99. Highway 99 is a road that runs through many jurisdictions in Snohomish County, King County, many different cities. And it was once the main north-south road in Western Washington before I-5 opened in 1968. When I-5 opened, it changed things very much for Highway 99, and many of the businesses here lost customers. In many cities in Washington, that's led to a legacy of older hotels, older commercial buildings, without a lot of new buildings. Cities throughout the state have worked to revitalize Highway 99 areas. In Shoreline, which has done many people in Edmonds have commented on the work that Shoreline has done with Highway 99. City of Tukwila, we mentioned. Everett and Linwood, in conjunction with the Swift Bus Rapid Transit line. Also Tumwater, I worked on a project in Marysville on Highway 99. It's a very common area of planning in Washington state with similar issues. That's the Ranch Roadhouse I learned about from the 1940s up there in the top picture. This is the study area, as we noted, Southeast Edmonds, runs from 228th Street on the north to 244th Street on the south at the Shoreline boundary. It's a heavy traffic 7-lane road. Mostly serves people within the area, Edmonds area, so not people driving up to Canada. There's a mix of businesses, a lively, vibrant mix of businesses and apartments along Highway 99 that are then surrounded by low-density residential neighborhoods. You might be surprised how long this area has been a part of Edmonds. It was annexed way back in 1961, or at least the east side of the road was, between the highway and Lake Bollinger. And the west side of the road was annexed to Edmonds in 1995, which unfortunately for millennials like me was already almost 30 years ago. And then the very southern end is a partial cloverleaf interchange where Highway 99 intersects State Route 104, and that was built in the 1960s. We'll talk about that more throughout the presentation, but it did change the area significantly by disconnecting some streets, taking up a lot of land with some of their impacts. This is just the study area from above. You can see we have the wide roadway, many businesses, and lovely trees that are a bit separate, a bit further away from the road. There is some new construction on the corridor in the upper left. I believe that's a 6 or 7-story new building that has gone up. There are, as I noted, apartments and condominiums along the corridor. There are, I believe, 4 different motels or hotels. which is most of the hotels in Edmonds. And there are Swift bus rapid transit stops. There's also, as we said, a great wealth of diverse businesses in the area that serve different communities. Including the Korean, Vietnamese, African, and Latino communities in Edmonds. We have another poll question for you. This area that I've been talking about doesn't have a very good name. We've been calling it the study area, which is not very flattering. So we want to hear from you. If you have an idea for the name, what is it?
And Ian, let's take our time on this. There's some people that are having issues with the QR code. Can you go back, or
yes,
a way to post the QR code so people have access to it?
Yes.
The challenge I'm having here is that I can't post a picture into the chat.
Right. Okay. I will have to go back to the QR code slide. Sorry, Susan, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, can they use the pollev.com/makerarc? Can they get it that way?
They can. I mean, or they, hopefully are able to.
Yeah. So folks that don't have the QR code, at the top of the screen here is pollev.com /makersarc229. If you punch that in, that's what I've used, and that seems to work.
Ooh. Okay, great. Brad, do you know if that was able to solve the problem?
I'm not sure, but if you could, are you presenting from a PDF, or can you copy the QR code onto the screen so people could access it?
I think probably the easiest thing for me to do is just to go back to the earlier slide. Oh, and wow, oh, look, I didn't know I could do this. Okay, there it is. 1 click, 2 clicks.
I don't know if we have the right question. It says if we could wave a magic wand and change the triangle, what would you wish for? Does anyone else get that?
Yeah, well, there's some comments that the polling questions are wrong.
I think, Ian, I think they're wrong.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm sorry. There's another meeting going on in the office right now. Wow. Okay. Unforeseen problem. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. But we do have a lot of material to cover.
Can we use the chat? Ian, I mean, I think it's important that, oh, we don't use the chat. Never mind. Never mind. Okay. Carry on.
Okay, that is an interesting one. We conducted stakeholder interviews with different groups of folks who are knowledgeable about the area. We talked to Councilmember Will Chin, the Edmonds Police Department, and the Edmonds Human Services Coordinator. Okay, we also talked with local property owners and developers and some service providers with community-based organizations. We learned a lot about the assets of the area. They are on this map. I am not going to read them all. I want to highlight as we noted before already, the culturally relevant businesses throughout the area and the nonprofit service providers. Also, the new City Hall neighborhood office here at the Safeway Plaza. The Safeway itself, which is a full-service grocery store, which is a big thing, and the Swift bus rapid transit stations that provide service to Everett and south to Shoreline. There are also issues that we learned about. The lack of sidewalks on side streets makes it hard to get around on foot or bike or wheels. The Highway 99 has few crosswalks. Makes it very hard for people on foot also. The motels are a major hotspot for the police, in particular domestic violence incidents. There's a burned out building, the former McFinster's Pub. And that's part of a large site with a very large building with not a lot of utilization, that's in below average condition and has some vacant parcels behind it. To the south, the interchange blocks mobility and prevents development in a large area. Following those interviews, we developed this list of community needs that we heard. Recreation facilities and public open space, ideally some indoor recreation as well as outdoor recreation for people to be healthy and socialize. A safer pedestrian environment, better connections to improve mobility so people can get around, a community center or some kind of civic facilities, better public health or social services, and public restrooms. Okay, I am going to skip the next poll question, but we can put it. Well, do you have an idea, Susan? We could ask people to type things into the question and answer box.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that. It seems like people are actively using that, so I think that's a good
Use
way.
that. I will go ahead and manage it and just dismiss them as I count them and tally them on a sheet.
Okay, that sounds great.
We'll still have records of what has been dismissed, just to keep the question and answer clean.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay. So we want to hear, did we capture the assets, the challenges and the needs correctly?
Ian, if you still want to show the question, that may be helpful.
Okay, I can. It will.
Oh, okay, never mind.
My colleague in the other meeting, I don't know, it could also mess them up.
Ian, can you just walk through for everybody the technical issue?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We have one account. This has never happened before. We have one account, and it works. You can do poll questions, one set of poll questions at a time. But we have two meetings going on with the same account, and so it's mixing together our poll questions and their poll questions. That's why we got a bunch of responses about West Olympia on the neighborhood name question.
Yeah.
So that is the issue.
And one other thing, I know that question was of interest to a lot of people in this room. So
yes,
we could bring that back up, and I will take a tally and record everybody's comments, and then you could move back forward.
Excellent. Well, why don't I bring it up and I'll go talk to my colleague and just get a sense of how many poll questions they have.
Sounds perfect.
Okay, excellent. Okay. I will be right back.
So just to clarify, yeah, that we wanted wanted to use the question and answer as an opportunity to also put in neighborhood names. So folks can use the question answer at the moment for neighborhood names if they want to contribute to that. Yeah, Ian, it's wildly confusing. I have to say, we should probably close the screen. I don't know.
Okay.
I can't tell which ones are ours and which ones are the other meetings.
Right. These looks like these more recent ones coming in are.
Yeah. I don't think so.
I'm really sorry about that. This is our oversight.
That's okay. I think maybe we could do, I could quickly do a Survey Monkey as a multitasking. We could put it, maybe that's a way to capture the ideas in the room, but you should probably keep going.
Okay. Great. Okay, study findings. We, as Susan noted, we've been studying the area to learn about the area, issues, potential blight. And Jennifer Cannon is here from Eco Northwest to tell us about the economic profile they conducted.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sounds great.
Great. I'm just going to walk through some high-level findings from our economic profile work. We looked at the community demographics in the study area. and the businesses that are located in the study area and some market indicators. This first slide describes the main findings associated with the community demographics. I won't go over all the different details here, but they are documented. But overall, the study area, as outlined in the map right on the right side, is more diverse, younger, has more renters, and has lower incomes than in comparison to the city of Edmonds. One highlight from this analysis is that there's a substantial more of a share of renters in this area. There's about 36 to 42% versus 28% in the city. And that's something to note. And there has been a little bit of increase in poverty in the area. And the prime age group is from it's from 20 to 64. So that is the main age group. Go ahead and go to the next slide.
I want to give the interpreters just 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry. Good.
Okay. All right. We looked at the main categories of businesses in the study area based off of the assessor data. And the main categories, the 6 main categories I highlighted here, most of the businesses are involved with retail trade at 35%, quite a few motor vehicle and auto repair type businesses. And then there's other professional businesses, restaurants, and hotel and motels. And as Ian mentioned earlier, there's quite a few hotel and motels in this study area. In terms of how well the market's doing, the one area that we saw that their market might not be performing so well is with retail. And the most significant finding was related to retail rents decreasing by 20% over the last year. It's been tough with COVID and the pandemic, and also due to a variety of other reasons. And online e-commerce has been very difficult for retail establishments. So whenever the interpreter's caught up, we can go to the next slide.
Okay.
We looked at the 4 hotel and motels in the area and the occupancy rates. And this chart on the right shows the occupancy rates, and it fluctuates on an annual basis. It dips during the winter months, and it peaks up in the summer. During the COVID pandemic, the hotels and motels had quite a dip, like everywhere else across the nation. And the occupancy has climbed back up to about 80%. We don't have information on long-term occupancy, but that is something to think about, because sometimes more affordable hotels and motels can be used for housing. And one thing to point out is that the most of these hotels are about 2-star, and some of them are aging, and they might be in need of some updates and upgrades. Go ahead and go to the next slide whenever the interpreter is ready.
This is the last one from your opening set.
Okay.
Thank you. Don't want to go to the poll because that will be confusing. But thank you, Jennifer, very much. I will speak about the urban design analysis that makers conducted in the area. We looked at many issues falling into these categories: the aging built environment, problems with the street and lot layout, the parks and the tree canopy, and crime and safety. The built environment refers to both buildings and roads and the the spaces around buildings. As I said in the beginning, many of the buildings are fairly old. All the pink colored buildings in here are at least 40 years old, and the darker colored ones are even older. So there's quite a few older buildings along this corridor that reflect its history as HWY99. And there's also a number of buildings in not very good physical condition. So those are the parcels here that are colored in yellow. We looked at code enforcement data for the whole city and plotted it in GIS. There's a hotspot. It shows up. The hottest hotspot in the city is here in the study area at the old 7-Eleven. We also looked at problems with the street and lot layout that make it more difficult in this area. HWY99 is a road that's trying to do many things. It's difficult to use for local driving because it has very few traffic signals and restricted turn movements. And there's no alternative parallel road. You can't really go around. And many properties don't have another option. HWY99 is the only way to access it. Oh, excellent. Thank you, Susan, for putting the SurveyMonkey link in the chat. So we can get your feedback that we really value. And I'm, again, very sorry about the mix-up. So HWY99 is struggling to be both a highway for long distance travel and a main street for businesses and homes. It's also a difficult place to walk. There are a few sidewalks on the side streets. Those red lines show where there's no sidewalk. There are a few crosswalks. There's only 3 in the whole study area, which is a very long distance to walk to cross the street. However, we should note the city is installing a new crosswalk at 234th Street as part of the infrastructure project. When people have to walk a long distance to a crosswalk, often they choose to jaywalk or to walk across the street without a crosswalk, which is very dangerous, as you can imagine. So the city blocks are very large here. In downtown Edmonds, they might be 300 by 600 feet. But here they're much larger at 600 by 1,000 or more feet. Just makes it hard to get around the study area and especially hard for people walking. There are fences and barriers between properties, dead-end cul-de-sacs with the poor pedestrian environment and the large blocks just makes it hard to reach destinations, businesses that you would like to patronize. The Highway 99 runs at a diagonal. And so property owners either have to orient their building towards the highway or towards their parcel boundaries. Either way, it creates awkward dead spaces between their buildings. And the diagonal intersections are also more dangerous. We touched on the interchange. It occupies a large amount of land, creates those dead zones where there's no activity, interrupts walkability, and makes it hard to access nearby homes and businesses because it interrupts the street grid. It also encourages fat people driving fast on those ramps and the loops. Those are designed for high speeds. This is just a concept, but this graphic sort of shows what it could be like in a theoretical scenario in which that cloverleaf interchange was revised or changed. Parks and tree canopy. The study area, so this map shows red is impervious, so like pavement, parking lots, and green is tree canopy. As you can see, there is a lot of red in the study area and not a lot of green. So not much tree canopy. Tree canopy has the benefits of improving the local air quality, providing shade and cooling benefits, reducing stormwater runoff, making things prettier, and also can help reduce stress and make people feel happier. There's also no parks in the study area. The Parks and Open Space Plan identified a need for greater parks access in this area. The map is showing a quarter-mile buffer away from parks. You can see that there's not too many that are near the study area. Mostly the parks are in the north part of Edmonds or in the downtown Edmonds area. It's a stark difference. And finally, crime and safety issues. I think I've said already, talked about dead zones. There's a lot of these where there's not good visibility and barriers that keep people from entering. There's a program called SEPTED that tries to help make safer spaces. And it says to avoid things like this that are poorly defined. It's not really clear what this is or who owns it. Places where you can't see well, and places where people are not walking through. And these kinds of places tend to attract crime. And here is a map. Many of these buildings behind and between can be not very safe. We also mapped crime reports, crime incident reports from Edmonds Police Department over 5 years. You can see there is a hotspot in the study area. It's not the only hotspot, but it's notable on the map. There's a high number of theft and shoplifting incidents, especially around that Safeway Plaza. There are many suspicious activity incidents in the sub area. And a major domestic violence hotspot where the motels are. And this is a repeat. Oh, and finally, traffic collisions. You can see Highway 99 very clearly. A little bit more in the northern area is a problem, though. To review, there are some older buildings in poor condition. There are poor pedestrian conditions or walking conditions, I should say. There's a lot of dead zones in between buildings where there's poor visibility. The oversized highway infrastructure makes it hard to get around and is unsafe. There are a few parks and limited tree canopy. And there's pretty high crime and code enforcement issues relative to the rest of the city. This is where we would ask a poll question if these findings sounded correct. Susan, do we have a strategy? Do we want people to ask people to type into the Q&A if these findings seem correct or off base?
Yeah, I mean, I think my recommendation is that we give airtime to that at the conclusion, and then we can just jump into questions and answer, and that can be part of the dialogue at that time.
That makes sense. Great. Cool. Susan, are you able to speak to this?
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you. So that was a lot of information, and I recognize that it didn't have, those are not rose-colored glasses in which we're looking at the corridor. And if this is your neighborhood, I also recognize that there's some sensitivities around that. We do have a decision about the community renewal plan, and the lens in which we've looked at this has been with the parameters of the RCW code that I referenced at the beginning. We set out to evaluate whether this area, whether it makes sense to employ some of the tools that we may have access to that would infuse both additional private investment through public-private partnerships, but also how the city could take a stronger role in turning those properties over, and as I mentioned at the beginning. But what we have found from other jurisdictions and other cities is that just engaging in the conversation has helped to connect the city with potential public-private partnerships and helps to identify opportunities that we may not have known existed. And that could be in the realm of park acquisition or redevelopment opportunities. And so I just wanted to take a moment to say that whilst it may appear that some of these are kind of dark or dark findings, again, not with the rose-colored glasses, our intention is to see whether these tools will match our neighborhoods along the Highway 99 corridor. So what's next? Ian, did you want to take a moment?
Oh, I was thinking that was a great segue for Jennifer's slide.
Yes, good, thank you.
Great. This slide basically discusses community revitalization tools that are available. It depends on what kind of goals and what kind of community investment you would like to pursue. So these are not necessarily related to the Community Renewal Plan Act. So there could be some placemaking type focused investments, and the source of the funding could be from, all sorts of different sources. One of the types of investment that was discussed was to right size the Highway 99 SR 104 interchange space and provide some safety improvements in that area. There could be some redevelopment of underutilized vacant sites, designed for more of a desirable use for the community. I know that there was some discussion about having a multicultural community center. That could be something that could be considered, and public-private partnerships often can be a great tool. And it could be where it's multiple public agencies that are working to bring something like a library or something that's needed in the area.
Let's give the interpreters a break or a pause. Sorry. Okay. Good, Cindy. All right, thanks, Jennifer.
Another tool to consider is the tax increment financing tool. There has been some improvements with the use of this tool in Washington State. It would be applicable for publicly owned properties, and it could be used to help finance improvements such as a community space or park improvements. And another area to consider is just to update the development regulations and incentives for the area to help catalyze some of that more positive type development that might be helpful and meet some of the community needs. So that is a summary of some other tools to consider.
Thank you, Jennifer. So yes, as I noted, we have an open house number 2 coming up in the future, and along with the council and planning commission hearing process. Okay, and now we're going to the open question and answer portion of the event. So thank you all for listening to this presentation.
Okay, Ian, so I've been answering a lot of questions as we went.
Okay.
Please, if anyone has follow-ups to those, please go ahead and add those to the question, the Q&A. There's one here from Kevin Harris, and he had a question regarding Tukwila Village, and I think you're involved in that. Weren't you, Ian?
Not personally. My firm worked on it 20 years ago.
Okay. The question is, why is Tukwila Village successful? And what measures of success were developed by whom, and what are the results? So I don't know if you have all those details, but if you are familiar with Tukwila Village, and you can speak to what was successful about that project, I think that would
be
helpful.
Yes. I think in short, it achieved, they wrote a community renewal plan. It had goals Tequila Village appears to be achieving those goals. Redeveloped vacant parcels, provided high quality housing, created community amenities. I don't know if it reduced crime, but it's certainly possible. It looks nice. So I think they had a space that wasn't working for a lot of people. They had goals, and they were able to use an unorthodox tool to create, or slightly unorthodox, to create something new that did meet their goals.
It's a good point. I think that's something that we could circle back with the second open house, is if we are going to use that as a good case study to find out kind of the reductions in crime and that kind of thing. So good opportunity to circle back. I also wanted to mention, as we see if there's other question and answer, that I did receive some SurveyMonkey results for the name. So I thought I would share those. One is east of 99, Ballinger Heights. The second is E-Town. The third is Lakeview. These are not in any particular order, even though I'm saying numbers. Lakeview, Edmonds Heights. And then there was a question about, the existing named Lake Ballinger, and how it relates to a potential new name. And so I would say that Lake Ballinger is a neighborhood name now. We don't map our neighborhoods, which we may consider doing as part of the comprehensive plan. Then we can formalize neighborhoods a little bit more, but hopefully that answers your question.
So there's another question here, and is there going to be an opportunity for the neighborhood to set goals?
And this is a great question, because as we were moving through the presentation, I thought that there was more that could be said about the parameters of this study. So the purpose of this study was really to evaluate, it's so narrowly focused, to evaluate whether or not we wanted to pursue a community renewal area per the RCW code. So it's fairly narrowly focused, and the feedback that we're going to receive tonight, and also in terms of the economic and urban design analysis, will help determine A, whether we qualify, and B, whether we want to pursue it. The draft recommendations open house will share with you those recommendations and provide feedback on our evaluation. I hope that helps to answer the question. So will there be an opportunity for the neighborhood to set goals? I was challenged by that question, because I think the goals of the project is to evaluate the community renewal area and whether we want to pursue that.
All right. So Beth was talking about the county hotel purchase, and that there was some drug addiction treatment that would have required the shelter to acquire. Sorry, I'm trying to put this together. Looking for shelter to agree to participate in drug addiction treatment. It's a long day. I think the point of this is that it seems counterintuitive to concentrate this type of activity in an area that is already experiencing drug and crime activity. I know that it's a county call, it's not really something, but I think in terms of concentration of these types of issues, is there anything that we could speak to regarding that issue?
I cannot speak on behalf of the county. I'll leave it at that. I cannot, I understand the question. And I think there's probably a couple schools of thought as to why the pros and cons of doing that. I know many of the hotels accept the vouchers for the unhoused. And so that's currently a place that they go. It serves them as a temporary quarters. So perhaps it makes sense as if that is a geographic area that they're used to going to provide services, that maybe to keep them in their same quote unquote community makes sense. But I don't want to speak on behalf of the county in their evaluation process.
All right, we have another question here regarding, is there a plan to work with homeowners to renew homes? Instead of, developers coming in and just developing large block apartments.
Sure. Brad, could you be more specific? Are you saying to renew homes, like to help renovate homes?
Correct. To renovate homes.
Okay.
I don't think it's necessarily part of this process, but go ahead, if you could speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question, and I, not to put Todd Tatum on the spot, but I know through ARPA funding in the past we did have a grant program. Todd, would you mind speaking to that if you can?
Yeah, in one of our past ARPA iterations, we did have a block for home improvement grants. We're looking what the possibilities are for those in 2023 and 2024. So I can't say whether or not those will be part of the coming budgets, but I think we'll be deliberating on those towards the end of the year.
Yeah, I can also say related but slightly different, in the mayor's budget that's under review at the moment, there is a facade improvement program that would help businesses to do some deferred maintenance work at their property frontages. So a little bit different than residential, but also helps with those that had struggled during the pandemic but persevered. But may not have had the discretionary income or funds to make those improvements.
All right, I have another question here. How can we drive more personality to each of the different zones? And could we curate a creative district in the Gateway area that ties to the downtown and encourages visitors to the Highway 99 corridor? It could include studio space and restaurants, etc.
Love it. Love it. We talked about this at Tuesday night at council. The sub-area plan for Highway 99 included strengthening our neighborhood district identities along Highway 99 as part of mitigation measures. So that is something that the city is as actively committed to. And I do believe that the comprehensive plan will provide a vehicle to do some illustrative visioning as to what that may look like. So great idea.
I was wondering, Jennifer, you wrote some about lifestyle centers, I think, in the economic profile. Is that relevant potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I could elaborate on that. We there's quite a bit of issue with especially a big box retail, malls, not having as much business and not being able to really thrive. And so there has been some new ideas that have been put out there where there's a mixed use kind of development where they have a combination of housing with retail or restaurants. They might have some gym facilities or other facilities, restaurants that create an experience tend to be doing well. So, there are, and that can include, public type facilities like libraries or youth centers or whatnot, computer centers, or so that's something to think about when there's a lot of space. And housing is always a need. There's actually been increases in rents for multifamily apartments in the area. So it does seem like there's still great demand for more housing.
Sorry, I was muted there. Is the primary value of doing a community renewal project for the funding? And then a statement that community renewal can have a stigma to a community.
Yeah, I think, let me think. The community renewal stigma I'll speak to. I think the urban renewal nomenclature of the past is really the stigma that's attached to it. I think the community renewal area is a different tool, but I can appreciate how the two terms are conflated. In terms of, the first question, Brad, was about funding. Is there funding associated with the community renewal area? And I would just simply say it's that, and I probably want Jennifer to answer this, but the funding would need to be, city would need to invest in private partnerships or invest in redevelopment. And so there is certainly a financial cost to the city, even if it yields some return. And so I think I'll have maybe Jennifer answer that more specifically. But there's also tax increment financing, which Jennifer had mentioned, that is a real benefit. And especially because we see the needs in Highway 99 in this area as being a lot of infrastructure or structural issues with the roads and the streets. That tax increment financing is a great way to chip away at those infrastructure needs. So Jennifer, do you want to speak to that maybe?
Yeah, and I can just say, the community renewal tool can help with more economic type development projects. There are a lot of other tools that can be used to help provide for more public infrastructure improvements. The tax increment finance tool is one that's gaining more popularity. It's kind of a new tool for Washington State. It's used all over though in other states, and we just recently got some improvements with it, with how we can use it in the community, and it can be used to help fund sidewalk and different types of utility kind of improvements. If there was like a need for a stormwater basin, it can be used to help with, like I mentioned before, park and kind of public space kind of benefits. But to do that, you have to do some research and some financial analysis to see how much you could generate and where you have to have public properties identified where you'd want to see that happen. It can't happen on private property.
That's helpful.
I'm sorting through some here. Does Edmonds already have a community response staff to respond to graffiti, homelessness, and other disturbances?
Graffiti on private property is private property's responsibility. We certainly have, the police department is very proactive and responsive to any crime. And if you see anything, they always encourage to say, 911. They are happy to respond. So I'll leave it at that. Oh, I'm sorry, homelessness and the unhoused. We have a new human services division as part of the Parks Department. There's a social worker, and there's also a social worker that is housed at our Highway 99 city office. They are able to connect unhoused or people vulnerable to homelessness, connect them with services. So yes, on all fronts.
And then this comes from a business owner along Highway 99. And I think that she may be mixing up the Highway 99 revitalization and Highway 99 renewal.
Yep.
But her question was, and I don't know, Susan, if you know, this is probably more of a engineering or public works thing, but is there assistance being offered considering the improvements that are happening along the corridor when access has been reduced?
Yeah, that would definitely be a public works question in relation to their construction project. But we can certainly put this gentleman in touch with the right person.
Right.
If he wants to leave his contact details, we can get back to him.
All right. If you do a community renewal plan, what will its relationship be to the comp plan update? Would it be done in conjunction with, or is it on its own?
It's a great question. I think, and I may pass this to Ian to answer, but I think they certainly are complementary. Much of the analysis that we've already done will feed into the comprehensive plan. And then whilst some of the actions associated with the community renewal plan will pertain to the tools that Jennifer talked about, some of them may be public investments that can be done, without those tools, without employing a community renewal area. Ian, can you talk about some of the broader actions that come out of these community renewal plans and what the vehicles end up being in terms of the planning documents?
So I think one is the community renewal law gives cities a little bit more power to act, and one of the ways that it does that is it grants a little bit more freedom from the comprehensive plan process. So being good planners, City of Edmonds would not want to do anything that was wildly out of spirit with the comprehensive plan. But and actually maybe this is less of an issue because you are concurrently doing them. But if you wouldn't be stuck to an old comprehensive plan that said you were going to do something however many years ago when he wrote that. So that is one way. I think that the comprehensive plan is generally a pretty high level document, and the community renewal plan can be much more specific about specific actions that it wants to take to achieve what is the general goals of the comp plan.
Yeah, I think it allows us to be much more nimble.
Yes.
We would not have to wait till 2024 until the comprehensive plan was adopted to take action. So it tends to be strategic, and it tends to be very proactive in terms of whether we had our sights on acquisition or partnership. It allows us to move quickly.
I had a kind of general question here that, there's some, folks who have expressed that they're not confident that anything will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And just was asking, is that what we're saying? Is that nothing will happen? I think that there's a lot of different planning processes going on right now, and improvements along the Highway 99 corridor. I don't know if community renewal will be the process that ultimately carries us forward, but I could say with confidence that there is a lot of attention on the Highway 99 area, and making improvements to improve safety along the corridor and also improve the overall built environment. And Susan, if you want to.
Oh, right. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were still asking the question. I was like, where did the question? Yeah, so I can completely understand that, what I call planning fatigue. If you're a committed stakeholder that has been active in this neighborhood, as dating back to the sub-area plan, before that, I can see how you would be fatigued with feeling like we put in this feedback and nothing happened. I think that we are seeing a lot of investment, whether that's private investment and public investment in the corridor at the moment. So that those wheels are turning. I think that what we're looking at from a community renewal area perspective are ways in which we can deliver our public investments, particularly ones that we committed to at the planned action, a little bit faster. You know, looking at those the tools such as enabling the public-private partnerships to deliver the community center, to deliver more parks that would be kind of an active partnership with some of the larger landholders. So I think I can empathize with what that person is saying, but I can tell you that every plan does have a purpose, and whilst they may seem duplicative, it's not the case. Yeah, just a tool in the toolbox.
So do we know when the draft recommendations will be available?
Yeah, we had that timeline. If we want to pull that up, I
think we're pretty close on those on the draft recommendations. We don't have an exact date on the timeline.
I can tell you, I mean, just from our conversations, our broader conversations, that our target was hopefully by the end of the year. And so whether that's end of Q4 as we inch towards the holidays, or really early Q1 at the beginning of 2023. But we are as Ian said, we are close. Brad?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just reading. There's a new one that just came in and I'm trying to read through it.
Okay.
So it is expanded police presence beyond the Safeway outpost and the addition of one police officer being requested in the 2023 budget, being considered to address the crime issues that Highway 99 is currently experiencing. Would a strong police presence offer an effective solution toward the renewal of areas like Highway 99, particularly in securing private investment and buy-on from commercial sector? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how aware you are of the police budget and what's being requested in that.
There's a huge investment in public safety in our 2023 budget. That includes increases in staffing, equipment, training, fleet vehicles. I can't tell you line item by line item, but there is certainly a big investment from a public safety perspective. Knowing what we know in terms of the crime locations on the corridor, the police would be staffing to address those needs. Would that turn over, in terms of would that be enough to turn over communities for the betterment? And I would say no. Oftentimes, as Ian said, crime prevention through environmental design, sometimes the structural nature of the corridor or the way our streets and buildings are designed that really foster or give safe haven to ill social behavior or crime. It also doesn't afford a pleasant place to walk or to be. And so when you're looking at neighborhood placemaking, or as Jennifer mentioned, the retail experience or the recreational experience, those areas are lacking on the corridor, and increasing police presence will not change those more structural issues.
And I think that does it for Q&A.
Okay. So in closing, it is 7:30. We really appreciate your attendance this evening. Virtual open houses are not easy, and I hope that this was effective for you at understanding what the project is, and to provide some opportunity to ask questions. I do believe the next open house, I would like for that to be in person, and I think it'll be more conducive to looking through the recommendations on boards and things like that. So anyway, just wanted to say thank you for your attendance. We have our project webpage, and if you're interested in staying in touch with the project, please join our listserv. But otherwise, please contact myself, Susan McLaughlin, or Brad Shipley, if you have questions aside from those you asked this evening. So thank you to Ian, thank you to Jennifer, thank you to our interpreters. Wow, that is a tough job. So thank you so much for your help. And good evening.
All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.